You walk into a blue and yellow building for a bookcase. Hours later, you leave with a flat cardboard box, a bag of frozen meatballs, and a job you did not realize you had accepted. You found the product in a showroom. You wrote down its location. You pulled it from a warehouse. You transported it home. Then you assembled it yourself. Most retailers would call those expenses. IKEA turned them into part of the customer experience. That is the real genius of IKEA. It did not simply make furniture cheaper. It redesigned the entire journey from forest to factory, from warehouse to living room, and quietly moved some of the work to you. This is how a teenager from rural Sweden transformed a tiny mail-order business into a global empire, one flat box at a time. Ingvar Kamprad grew up near the village of Agunnaryd in Småland, a rocky agricultural region in southern Sweden. The landscape was not generous. Families learned to avoid waste, repair what they owned, and make limited resources go further. That culture of thrift would later become the operating system of IKEA. Kamprad began trading while he was still a child. He bought matches in bulk and sold them individually to neighbors. Later came Christmas cards, seeds, pens, and other small goods. On July 28, 1943, at the age of 17, he registered a trading company. Its name was assembled from four initials: I for Ingvar, K for Kamprad, E for Elmtaryd, the family farm, and A for Agunnaryd, the nearby village. At first, IKEA had almost nothing to do with furniture. It was a mail-order operation selling whatever could be sourced cheaply and delivered at a profit. Kamprad was learning a lesson that would shape the company. The price of an object is only one part of its cost. Purchasing, packaging, transport, and handling matter just as much. In the late 1940s, Kamprad noticed a large gap between furniture manufacturers and ordinary Swedish families. Modern furniture existed, but much of it was too expensive for people with modest incomes. IKEA added furniture to its range in 1948. By 1951, Kamprad had abandoned most of the small products and published the first fully furniture-focused IKEA catalog. The catalog was more than a price list. It let rural customers imagine complete rooms before traveling anywhere. But mail order created a problem. Customers could not touch a chair or judge the quality of a table from a printed page. Kamprad's answer was a permanent showroom in Älmhult in 1953. Customers could inspect the furniture, compare it with the catalog, and then place an order. In 1958, IKEA opened its first full store in the same town, at the time, the largest furniture store in Northern Europe. The formula was beginning to emerge. Inspiration first, low prices second, and a carefully organized path from desire to purchase. Traditional Swedish furniture retailers did not welcome the newcomer. IKEA advertised prices directly to consumers, challenged established margins, and cut out middlemen. Competitors responded with a price war. During the 1950s, industry organizations pressured manufacturers not to supply IKEA. The company was excluded from furniture fairs. Some suppliers delivered products under different names or sent them to neutral addresses to avoid being discovered. The boycott could have destroyed IKEA. Instead, it forced the company to become more independent. If IKEA could not buy the same furniture as everyone else, it would develop its own designs. If normal purchasing channels were blocked, Kamprad would find new suppliers. The company began working directly with factories, studying how products were made and changing designs to remove unnecessary cost. IKEA was no longer merely a retailer searching for cheap furniture. It was becoming a system that designed the product, the packaging, and the production process together. IKEA did not invent flat-pack furniture. Versions of knockdown furniture had existed for decades, But IKEA saw that the flat box could become the center of an entirely new business model. Furniture was expensive to transport because it carried large amounts of empty space. A fully assembled table filled a truck with air. It was also vulnerable to damage. A supplier in Hultsfred showed Kamprad a sturdy table with fittings that made customer assembly easier. In the 1953 catalog, IKEA introduced 3 tables designed to be assembled at home. The logic was powerful. Remove the legs, make the package flat, and more products fit into every truck and warehouse. Transport costs fall. Damage can fall. Storage becomes easier. The customer carries the product home and completes the final stage of production. But flat-pack thinking went deeper than removing table legs. IKEA designers increasingly had to consider logistics from the first sketch. A beautiful detail could be changed if it wasted space in the box. A joint could be redesigned if it required expensive tools. The package was not an afterthought. It helped determine the product itself. IKEA had discovered that one of the best ways to reduce price was to design backwards from the truck. As demand grew, Sweden's factories could not provide enough capacity, and the supplier boycott made the shortage worse. In 1961, Kamprad traveled to Poland with his father, purchasing manager Ragnar Sturt and designer Bengt Ruda. The group visited factories and began ordering chairs, tables, and fabrics. Polish production costs could be dramatically lower than equivalent manufacturing in Sweden. IKEA offered suppliers large volumes and long-term relationships. In return, the company became deeply involved in factory methods, tools, and product design. The relationship was not simply about searching for the lowest wage. IKEA helped suppliers modernize production so that cost could be removed repeatedly, across thousands of units. Poland became a crucial part of the company's supply chain and gave IKEA the capacity to keep growing beyond Sweden. Once again, an attempt to stop the company had pushed it toward a stronger model: proprietary designs, international sourcing, and close control of manufacturing efficiency. The next breakthrough was not a piece of furniture. It was the building that sold it. When IKEA opened its huge Kungens Kurva store outside Stockholm in 1965, thousands of customers arrived. The scale created congestion, but it also revealed what the IKEA store could become. Instead of presenting a few isolated products, IKEA built complete room settings. Customers walked through bedrooms, kitchens, and living rooms, seeing how inexpensive objects could form an entire home. Then came the self-service warehouse. Shoppers recorded an aisle and rack number, collected the flat package themselves, and carried it to the checkout. The showroom created desire. The warehouse converted that desire into an efficient physical transaction. This arrangement removed labor from the traditional furniture store. Fewer staff were needed to retrieve, transport, and explain every item. Inventory could be stacked densely. The large building on inexpensive land outside the city became part showroom, part warehouse, and part logistics terminal. Even the long route through the store had a commercial purpose. It exposed visitors to rooms and products they had not planned to see. The cheap candle, storage box, or lamp added to the cart helped turn a furniture trip into a much larger basket. At IKEA, architecture was not decoration. It was business strategy. IKEA understood that furniture shopping could be tiring. When the first showroom opened in 1953, visitors were offered coffee and biscuits. The gesture soon evolved into a restaurant strategy. Food kept people inside the store longer and made the trip feel like a family outing. A relaxed customer with a full stomach was more willing to continue shopping. Swedish dishes also gave the international company a distinctive cultural identity. By the 1980s, IKEA had developed a consistent restaurant concept. including the meatball recipe that became one of its most recognizable products. Outside the store, the catalog performed a similar role. It did not merely display furniture. It staged believable homes, showed solutions for small spaces, and trained customers to see IKEA as a source of ideas. At its peak, IKEA printed hundreds of millions of catalogs in dozens of languages. The publication entered homes before the store did. When the printed catalog was finally retired after the 2021 edition, its job had already moved online. IKEA was selling furniture, but it was also selling the anticipation of a better organized life. The IKEA seen by customers looks simple. Behind the logo, the corporate structure is more complicated. In the mid-1980s, Kamprad committed the business to a franchise system. Inter IKEA Systems owns the IKEA concept and acts as the worldwide franchisor. Different franchisees operate stores in their markets, while companies across the system develop the range, manage supply, and run retail operations. The largest retailer, Ingvar Group, is owned by a Dutch foundation. Inter IKEA Group is controlled by a separate foundation. The structure has no ordinary public shareholders demanding quarterly dividends. Supporters say this protects independence and allows the business to think in generations rather than quarters. It also makes IKEA unusually difficult to understand from the outside. What appears to be one company is a network of owners, franchise agreements, suppliers, and operating groups held together by the same concept. That concept is the real asset. Products designed for low cost, flat packages, self-service stores, Swedish identity, and a customer willing to participate in the process. The system was powerful, but it was not universal. IKEA's first attempt to enter Japan in the 1970s struggled. Furniture was often too large for Japanese homes. Many customers relied on public transport, making bulky packages difficult to carry. And a self-service, do-it-yourself model conflicted with expectations of attentive retail service. IKEA left the market and returned decades later with smaller products, home delivery, assembly services, and a better understanding of local living spaces. The lesson was important. Efficiency comes from standardization, but global growth requires knowing what cannot be standardized. The company has faced other tensions as well, questions about sourcing, environmental impact, product safety, and the frustration of self-assembly. Yet the core model continues because its incentives are aligned. Smaller packages reduce cost for IKEA and price for the customer. Dense warehouses support scale. Participation makes shoppers feel that the final object is partly their own achievement. In financial year 2025, IKEA reported €44.6 billion in retail sales. Its stores welcomed hundreds of millions of visits, while online sales represented more than a quarter of total sales. The empire began with a teenager selling small goods from rural Sweden. It grew because Kamprad and his colleagues treated every obstacle as a design problem. A boycott became an international supply chain. An expensive delivery problem became the flat pack. A warehouse became a showroom. A hungry customer became a restaurant guest. And unpaid work became part of the shopping experience. IKEA did not win by creating the most luxurious furniture. It won by redesigning who performs the work and sharing part of the savings with the customer. The next time you tighten the final screw on an IKEA bookcase, remember, you did not only build the furniture. You helped build the business. If you enjoy documentary stories about the companies that shaped our world, subscribe to Chronos AI Media. The next empire is already waiting.